for Crypto Pulse with Dr. Davis, the same channel. You will have all the, yeah, more than 90% of all the weekly episodes that we've had. You have them available on the YouTube channel. So, as I said today, I'm talking about three things. The first is the balance of global balance of power. The second is the dollarization, and the third is 7 year Bitcoin strategy. Of course, like a general disclaimer that everybody gives, it's not a financial advice, but it's such of something I think it's going to be very beneficial for everyone. It's something I'm going to put in place personally because I think the next decade is going to be a pretty unsettling decade for everybody. Uh, I mean, across the globe. So I think it's important to have a mentality to plan ahead. So, in talking about the balance of power, of course, if you don't already know, during the week, or well, it wasn't really during the week, I think it was last week, but the news came out during this week that China and Russia have sort of formed an alliance to create an alternative global payment system. So, to give a context to that, before the World War, we didn't really have any global payment system. People really did international trade settlements in gold. After the World War, US came to prominence because, of course, US neutralized Japan. And for context, Japan was the second superpower after the US. If you take out Germany, Japan was the second superpower at the time, and Japan was rapid. In fact, they had the strongest economy, the fastest growing economy before the Second World War, and they also had a very rapidly expanding population and demand. And because they're pretty small island, they started encroaching on neighboring countries like China. And it was, yeah, I'll come to what I said. That's the last thing I'm going to talk about, the 7 year Bitcoin strategy. And it was Japan that was encroaching on China. And literally, they were going to take over China, just like China wants to take over Japan now. I mean, takes over Taiwan now. They were going to take over Japan, but because the US was not disposed to that kind of behavior at the time, they decided to sanction Japan. So they blocked the steel. So US was sending a lot of steel the way of Japan for their construction and development at the time. So they blocked the export of steel to Japan. In retaliation, after a while, Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, not knowing that US was setting a trap for them because apparently they were looking for some way to test the atomic bomb that they had been cooking, and they had been postulating that it was possible that Germany was also preparing an atomic bomb at the same time. So, based on that postulation, they followed through on everything that Einstein told them about the atomic bomb, and they went and developed it. But they never had the opportunity to test it on anybody until Pearl Harbor happened. So, when Pearl Harbor happened, they sort of rallied the troop, and everybody was like, "Yes, we need to, fight back." And of course, they bombed Japan shitless. Sorry to use that word. If you go through the history book, they leveled those two cities. It's like going to it's like going to New York, central New York, New York, leveling the whole of New York plus Staten Island, then going to California, leveling the whole of San Francisco by 10-mile radius of the city, not just the city itself. That's exactly what the US did for Japan, and because nobody had that capability of I've ever seen anything like that before. Everybody sort of agreed that whatever US wants, everybody needed to give US. So US automatically became the world power following that Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombing. But that wasn't the issue. US now said to broker peace in the world, because that was when things like UN came to be. Settlements need to be made internationally in dollars, and it will be backed by gold. So yes, US had enough gold at the time, and they were able to back the production of every dollar by an ounce of gold. And all international settlements were made by US dollar. And about the time petroleum started coming into foreplay in the global markets, they made sure that OPEC and everybody agree that petroleum settlements or payments will be done in the US dollar. So what that does is it makes if you put it in crypto balance, it creates use case for the US dollar token. That's if you put it in crypto balance and try to look at it with the lens of crypto. It gave a lot of use case to the dollar, such that if you are increasing the literally, if you are increasing the token, no matter how much you increase the token, because it had a lot of room and a lot of use case, the demand for the token itself, which is the US dollar in this case, sustained the value of the dollar. So what then happened was in the 1970s, US was in a Cold War and they were afraid that Russia was going to overrun them. So, well, USSR, as we know them then, USSR was a much bigger composite state like the US and had many territories covering places like Romania, current Ukraine, Hungary, Belarus. All those places were USSR back then. And they started printing more money than they had gold backing for. The president at that time was a very nefarious character, pretty much, almost like Trump. But Trump's not as bad as the guy. The guy is a proper bad guy. Richard Nixon, you can read up about him. And they started printing more money than they had gold for because they needed to keep up um, their research. And it was about the same time they were trying to get to the moon and all those stuff. And there was this myth then that if you could get a missile or a rocket into stratosphere or into space and then bring it back, that you had the capacity, you had the upper hand in terms of firepower. So there was a lot of, the race to get to space. And on the back of that, the US decided that, what, this peg that we had to go is hindering our flow. So they depegged from gold and said, we're no longer going to tie the US dollar to an ounce of gold. Essentially, from that time on, US dollar ceased to be a commodity and started to become what is known as currency today. And it became backed by debt and the promise of the economy of the United States and its military. That's the only thing backing. That was the only thing backing the US at the time. In fact, before that thing happened, I think France had started to smell a rat, and France came to demand for their gold. They brought a ship to New York to demand for their gold. They never gave them that. They never gave them that gold. I don't think they've given them that gold till today. They never gave them the gold. And US subsequently depegged and said, you know what? They probably settled them in US dollars through the International Bank of Settlement. So all the current financial system that we have is created on the premise of the global supply of the US dollar. However, it was like a two-edged sword, because what it meant was that US now had infinite ability to print money on demand for whatever it wanted to do. So if you check the advancement of the United States from 1970 till date, or till 2008 when the financial crisis hit, you'll find out that there's been significant progress in all spheres, massive leaps in every direction, heavy research into all sorts of things, coming up with all sorts of innovation and all that, because the US had no spending cap, literally. So anytime there was money shortage, they just needed to go and borrow. And then you hear something about the national debt going to trillions and all that. But it's all on paper, really. The money is all on paper. They are only doing that to account for the money being printed, the extra money being printed to meet the needs. Now, the effect of that in any normal economy, if the economy was was a monologous economy, like let's say the Nigeria now, where we're the only ones spending our naira. If you print money like that, you're going to have hyperinflation. You suddenly become like Zimbabwe, where you have a loaf of bread going for almost a wheelbarrow of notes. So, but because the US dollar was the global railway system for financial payments and international settlements for most transactions and oil, it made sure that the US remained relevant and was in constant demand. And of course, on the back of that, we created all sorts of derivatives and commodities. So you have DXY, you have the Standard & Poor, you have the US bond market, and of course, all those stuff create demand for the United States dollar. And any country that has tried to remove itself from that dominance, the US has found a way to take them out tactically. I can give you examples if you don't already know. Example was Gaddafi in Libya, who wanted African countries to trade in gold with themselves and sell their oil for gold. They took him out. Same thing with Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein wanted to sell oil in euros. They took him out on the accusation of weapon of mass destruction. So it's been a very difficult task for any single country to get off the yoke, for lack of a better word, of the dollar dominance. But the situation has happened with Russia, in which essentially Russia's international treasury has been frozen, and the one that is not with with how do I put it now? The one that is not within the coffers of the United States have been carried physically to the Middle East. It's privileged information, but I know for sure that there are many ships uh, loaded with dollars that have moved between Russia and the Middle East in the last 1 year. So they've been physically shipped out to the Middle East. Now, the consequence of that is China, India, Iran, Syria, I mean, forget Brazil and Argentina, but those Middle East alliance with China and Russia have now come together to say, well, we need to develop an alternate path. Now, of the alliance, China is the strongest and the biggest. So China proposed that they use the yuan. I'm sure we'll start seeing the implementation of that in the years to come, or probably as soon as the end of this year. But bear in mind that China already started the digital yuan project. In fact, like I told you in 2019, they were the first people to implement the their own CBDC within the state, and they were paying people with it. But the adoption is not as strong because people still believe in gold and Bitcoin. Even though they banned people from buying Bitcoin, people are still, buying on the black market, and of course, people are still buying gold and not believing in their currency. So it's the beginning of a new financial order, if you will. And what that means is that US will either fight or sink. I'm not a prophet, so I can't tell you whether US will survive it or not. But I know that they will not go without a fight. I mean, that's for me. It goes without saying. I don't know how that's going to pan out or who's going to be who's going to take the brunt of this. It might be Russia. It might be Russia. Or it might be that US will implode upon itself because there are a lot of constitutional issues that are wrong with US itself as a country right now. But I don't think I want to go into that. But the options are the US dollar implodes and becomes useless, and the US goes into hyperinflation, and the member states decides to pull out. So there's been talks of Texit. There's a sort of talk of Texas saying they want to pull out of the US Union. California has said that California is on a deathward spiral in their own lane, but they've also threatened to pull out. California, Florida, Arizona, and Texas, and I think New York have that autonomy to say that they want to pull out of the union. I think Texas one is actually the strongest because they were one of the last to join the United States Union. So that may happen if the dollar implodes on itself. If we get into trade war for the rest of the decade, then it's going to be very difficult because there will be that tension between the yuan and the dollar. On the one hand, US has played their hands, so or out. I don't want to say outplayed, but US have played their hands, so everybody knows what the US is looking for in any country. If you take African countries for instance, except a very stupid African leader will not know that this is how the United States operates where they have interest. So because they've played their hands and people sort of know how the modus operandi, there is a lot of leaning towards the Chinese axis for many of the African countries. On the other hand, there's this that latent, what do you call it, latent suspicion, because of course everybody knows China is literally an autocracy, and they can screw you up very fast if they want to. And the chain of command is very short, so they are much more effective. But we've not seen them. We've not seen them deploy their military might anywhere outside the region. So everybody's not sure what China can do. Everybody knows everything is coming from them right now. So everybody's trying to deal with them in a special way. So Africa and all the other countries, the developing countries, will try to deal with China with a special, arrangement. Bearing in mind that most countries have already entered agreement with China on swap trade. So, for instance, Nigeria, I think entered that agreement with China in, I think that was 2021. So that anything you want to buy from China, you can swap naira to yuan. So I'm sure they've done that with almost every African country. So it makes it easy for them to carry on trading, no matter what US is doing in terms of sanctions or economic warfare against them. However, knowing the United States for what it is, they will not go down without a fight. So I think there'll be a lot of serious fallout for this change in dynamics. Of course, US cannot attack Saudi because Saudi is the key alliance. Saudi still buys stuff from them, and of course, you can't attack Saudi, the most holy, what's it called, geographical space for the Muslim. Both of them are in Saudi Arabia. So if anybody was to say they want to attack Saudi today, they will have 2 billion Muslim souls to go through, because it will be like declaring a jihad, essentially. So that's not going to happen. What's likely to happen is maybe a full-scale war with Russia, or try to destabilize Russia, or fight proxy wars like the one in Ukraine, then fight the one in Taiwan, and maybe any other one that is coming on, and use that as an opportunity, or use those countries as a theater of war. But what is obvious is that we're not getting into economically stable terrain. And what this means for the central bank in the US is that they cannot lower rates for now, because if they pause or they lower the rates, hyperinflation will set in, because they've already printed, like we've discussed so many times, they printed far enough money than they need for the next 10 years. I mean, that they should have for the next 10 years. So it's pretty much trying to catch up now on how much they've overprinted, and to use interest rate hikes to balance it. But the interest rate hike has begun to hurt the banks, like you already know, and has caused a lot of mess already. There are probably like 260 banks at the last count that needs to be bailed out potentially in the US if this rate hike continue. I've explained the mechanisms in previous videos about how banks are not able to, remain liquid if the interest rates keep going up, because they overstretch themselves by borrowing out so much money. So the balance of power is changing, and with it comes de-dollarization, as I said, meaning people want to move away from, well, a good percentage of countries want to move away from the dollar. Whether that will succeed or not, we don't know, but it has started. They will need to build the framework. China is good with, building, and because India is there, so they have, technically speaking, they have a very, very, more than a good chance. They have a perfect chance. So you have China, the producer and the big money bag. You have Russia, the stubborn one, and then you have India, the tech backbone. So they will be able to produce the technological backbone to carry out those things within themselves. But what that does is that it validates the original case for having a decentralized monetary system like Bitcoin. Because if you have a decentralized monetary system that nobody can inflate or deflate at will, then it's completely, I don't want to use the word democratic, but it's completely objective, in that you can't increase the supply, you can't decrease the supply. So the value can only increase against other equivalents that are much more variable. So if this attack on the dollar succeeds, of course, Bitcoin price in dollar is going to go straight through the roof. And then there will be the need to now start recalibrating against currencies like the yuan. The yuan is much more smaller, if I remember. I can't remember the fractional um, exchange now, but it's very small. I think it's like 120 to 1 or so. is quite low, and the Chinese have made it that way so that they can export outside of the country and gain from the exports. So what that means is that the case for Bitcoin is going to be becoming stronger. It's going to be a protracted battle. In my mind, I think maybe 5 to 7 years before they can literally overthrow completely and say for a fact that the US dollar has been overthrown as the global currency. And in that space, what will then happen is as the news starts to hit home, because now people in the US don't know this thing, by the way. If you ask anybody on the street in the US right now, less than 5% of people know what I'm telling you happened this week. Most of the people got carried away by Donald Trump and Donald Trump's indictment. They don't know that this sort of seismic change has happened already. So if the US dollar does not win the battle, what will happen is there will be internal tensions within the United States, meaning threats of fractional breakup within the member states. Most people will start to move their asset because think about it. If you buy land, the land is based on the value of the currency of the geographical space where that land is. If you buy land in Nigeria, why does it go? It goes up because the rate of inflation of the naira is far higher than the land. So the land will always appreciate because inflation is jumping. The same way if you buy land or even real estate here in the UK, you say okay, 6% or 5% return and 2% or 10% growth, depending on which part of UK you are in. In London, it said that the property gains or doubles its price every I think every 7 years or 7.5 years. So property in London normally will double its price every 7 to 7.5 years. And the reason is, I mean, it's very obvious. The banks are always pumping the markets. I don't want to go into the dynamics of that, but it's like pump. Well, it's not pump and dump. It's like pump and pump because they're always pumping the market. They're always financing development project. They're always pumping money into real estate. So the market is always going to grow because they are driving the demand. And I've mentioned here before how money is created here in the UK. I can't remember which of the videos that was, but it's basically on debt. So, and when you create money on debt, what you are hoping is that the value you're going to produce at the end of the chain is going to pay for the debts and more. So that's the principle of currency and creating money from debt. So somebody needs $500,000 to buy a house in the United Kingdom, goes to the bank. The bank says, okay, we'll do credit check, do blah 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 blah. The bank doesn't have the money. Most of the time, the bank doesn't even have the customer's money because they plug the most customer's money into something else. So the banks go to the Bank of England. Bank of England, somebody wants $500,000. So we have five people that didn't have half a million. So we have 5 million that we need to add to our debt ledger. So Bank of England said, okay, what are your checks? These are all our checks. Tick, 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 tick. So Bank of England says, okay, we'll write 5 million to your ledger. You so they essentially created 5 million for the bank. Now, if the bank is a very big bank like Barclays or Lloyd's or the Lloyd's Group, they will create the money themselves. Then they will balance it back to the Bank of England. I'm not joking. This is what's happening for real. So that's how money is created in I don't want to use the word in what first word in a country like United Kingdom. So if that happens, going back to my logic on the US dollar, house prices will get into problem. The economy will be in problem generally. And once the economy is in problem and people realize that, okay, we need to go to hard assets, you see people start rushing to gold and Bitcoin. To explain what I'm saying, let me just show you the chart of gold. The chart of gold will show you what exactly has happened this week because internationally, people can read immediately the ramification of what has just happened. Because what it means is that if um, if people are not going to be using the US dollar, everybody needs to look for what you call, say, USD. Sorry, to gold. Okay, so everybody needs to start to sort themselves out. So this is gold. So you can see gold's been pumping literally. Let me go to the daily charts. See, Thursday, 9th of March. Gold's been pumping since Thursday, 9th of March. when the market started getting the inkling that this kind of alliance is going to happen. So, in the last, we can say that in the last 1 month, gold has done 10%. If I want to 10%, 11% is currently around 9.1 in 1 month. That's I mean, for gold, that's a massive movement. Gold against the US dollar. So, what will begin to happen is that just like people are rushing for gold in China after the coronavirus, there will be a rush on gold and commodities in the United States. But quickly, people will realize that, oh, Bitcoin is more fungible than gold. The logistics of moving, you know, 500 pallets of gold is nerve wracking than if you have 500 Bitcoin. I mean, you don't really need to worry yourself. You just need to find a safe place to put the stuff in, and you can go and download your wallet, whatever, wherever you're going. Literally, you can carry the economy of the world in a wallet in Bitcoin, and nobody will know. So there will be a run on Bitcoin. I don't know when it's going to happen, but if this battle continues, and it looks for any reason that US is not going to win the battle, it will not be easy for the common man to buy Bitcoin again. I'll say that again. If the battle rages on and it looks in any way that the US is going to permanently lose ground as the international settlement currency, then there will be a run on gold, and for sure there will be a run on Bitcoin. It's not going to be available for the common man anymore, because everybody will suddenly realize that what people like Michael Saylor have been saying since 2020, that this is hard money. Everybody will suddenly realize that for real this is hard money, and everybody will want to convert. So if you had 500 properties in New York, just as an example, or let's even say 10, let's not talk about too many big things. Somebody has 10 properties in New York, each of them, let's say, is $10 million. If the dollar gets into crisis and it wants to sell, it can't sell at that point in time, because even if there are people to buy, it's not going to be able to sell it in one day, not probably not in 1 week. But if he had his money in Bitcoin, he could literally cash it out at any point in time. All he needs is an exchange to plug in the funds to and sell it. So people will realize all of a sudden that this narrative of hard money and democratized capital is coming home, and it's coming to roost, and everybody will start taking it more seriously. So what's my submission before we go into talking talks today? My submission is that I think each one of us should develop a 7 year Bitcoin, maybe not a 7 year, maybe a lifetime Bitcoin strategy. I'm working on something. Hopefully, in the next 1 year, I'll be able to unveil it. But at least develop a 7 to 10 year strategy that ensures that your a significant proportion of your assets is in Bitcoin. I'm not saying don't buy land. I'm not saying don't buy equities. I'm not saying, you know, don't get yourself. I mean, for you can even buy US bonds if you will. But what I'm saying is, it is going to be the new underpinning for global economy. I don't know how much to explain or how well I can explain it. All I can just say is, as you do your portfolio planning, make sure that a certain portion, just if it's $10, if it's $5, just buy and keep. It doesn't have to sit on the exchange. You have decentralized exchanges. I mean, decentralized wallets like Trust Wallet, SafePal, Airpla, MetaMask. Let's say MetaMask is not. Let's even assume MetaMask is not secure. You have blockchain.com. There are a lot of them. You have crypto.com wallets. You have Coinbase wallets. All those wallets, or even plain Ledger, or the other one. Just make sure that you have that backup, because I think we're going to get to a point where there will be a run on gold, and when there's a run on gold, best be sure it will filter in quickly to the crypto markets. I don't want to sound like a prophet of doom, but I think the next decade is going to have some significant challenges. I come in contact with a lot of data from different sources, and the picture is painting in my mind is that there are two things that are going to happen on a global level. I think that there's going to be a climate emergency. I mean, it doesn't have to be real, just like COVID didn't have to be real, or COVID didn't have to be as deadly before they made it what it was. There'll be sort of pandemic-like um, aspersion on the global level that will generate that climate emergency. And you can already see if you watch the COP 27, COP 23, the climate meetings that they've been having, you can see the handwriting on the wall. And what I think is going to happen is they're going to try to. So there's this thing on a corporate level called carbon credits for people who work in oil and gas or who have oil and gas experience. When I was in MBA, I did a specialty in oil and gas, and carbon credit was just a new concept then. And the concept was that you could, technically speaking, it was like you could pay out your way of emissions. So you would calculate based on your processes and everything you are doing how much carbon proof footprint you have. They calculated the weight, they weighted it in dollars, and there's a figure to it per how much carbon dioxide they think you're emitting. So they put a figure to it, and what they're doing is making very large corporates. Those large corporates, by the way, are like countries on their own. So they make those large corporates to estimate their carbon footprint. Now, if they've been able to take measures to reduce that footprint, they are also required to report it. Where they have excesses, they will have carbon credits. Where they're deficient, they will have carbon defects, or not carbon defects, carbon credit defects. Now, what most of them do is that they'll take the action right, so they'll reduce emission and carbon footprint. But on the other hand, they will go to the carbon credit market. So there's a carbon credit market. They will go and buy credits and add it to the ones they have. So how does that work? Green companies, quote and unquote, again, quote and unquote, green companies like Tesla get free credits they get free carbon credits by the government because they are assumed to be contributing to reduction of emissions. So they get free carbon credits. So Tesla before 2019 never made profits. The only profit they made was selling their carbon credit. That was their profit. So that marketplace exists at a global corporate level. What I think is going to happen over the next 5 to 6 years is they're going to want to try to pound that down to the individual level to say, now we need to know your carbon credits. And it will almost become like a credit score where your carbon footprint is tied to your quote and unquote social credits, and then determines what you can and what you cannot do. Like I said, I'm not a prophet of doom, but I think I have enough cognitive intelligence to be able to see where this is going, because everything that's been lined up seems to go in that direction, where people will be forced, especially in the Western world, people will be forced or be tied to their carbon footprint, and they will say, we can report on your carbon footprint because now you are spending central bank digital currency. You're no longer spending physical money. You're spending on the blockchain of the government, and the government can see all your spending, everything you're spending money on. The government has it. I mean, it's on their blockchain. So that's what CBDCs are about. So I think CBDCs are going to, the European, what's it called? Christine Lagarde, she still said it's like last week. So I think they're going to deploy. Like I said, I don't think 24 months is going to pass before we see a deployment of the first country that is going full on with central bank digital currency. Um, because it's quite draconian in its enforcement or in its implementation, it might not quickly take on, because what it will require is that one, everybody will need to have a wallet that is on the government's blockchain. Now, for you to have a wallet, it means you are visible on the blockchain. Of course, your wallet will be KYC, so they know who you are. Your wallet will be probably tied to your NI in the UK, or social security number in the United States. So if that is tied together, Anytime you get paid, it shows on the blockchain that money goes into your wallet. Even if let me put it away, even if it's not, how do I put it, even if it is your bank account, what I'm saying is this: your bank account become a digital wallet. That's what I'm saying. So because the bank has your details, they will have to create a wallet for you. In fact, it's very easy for a country like UK to do it, because all they have to do is everybody has a bank account automatically. They will assign you a wallet. So essentially, your bank account will become a hot wallet, and the government is able to see wherever the money is going, because the money is going around the loop on the blockchain. So because of that, they can tie that down to your carbon footprint, because they can tell what you're spending money on. They already know where you're going because of your phone. They are able to tell how much you're spending, and they're able to say, okay, because of what you're spending, this is your carbon footprint and this is your carbon credit score, which will determine a lot of other priorities. So it's important that we start to think along that line. I think 2031 will be the year we'll start seeing many of those things fall out. The second one that I think is a global phenomenon that will happen over the next 5 years is the issue of global outage. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because the World Economic Forum, as you know, they always talk about simulation of what can happen in the country or what can happen in the world. And based on their simulations, we've literally seen things unfold. In July of 2019, they came up with a simulation of what will happen in the case of a global pandemic. By 20, sorry, was that 2019? Yes, by 2020, we saw what happened with COVID. COVID was already on ground just less than 1 year after. So they have a new report on a global cyber attack that will shut down most of the internet in the world. So I think that's also a possibility. But what I'm saying is that it's time to seriously consider Bitcoin as an alternate asset holding. And I mean, it's literally a safeguard, because the way things are going, I think we're going to have some very serious economic wars in the next years come. That's I think I'm going to stop on that, because I don't want to go into I don't want to go into details and get into trouble with government. But I think, yeah, I think we're going to have some serious economic warfare, and I think that thing about carbon credit is inevitable. CBDC is inevitable. Uh, the run on gold and Bitcoin is inevitable if dollar loses the war. If dollar loses the war, it's inevitable that sorry, somebody is trying to reach my phone. Uh, Unfortunately, I don't have. Just give me a second. Okay, that's messed up. Okay, so yeah, so what I wanted to say was, yes, everyone needs to have that Bitcoin multi-year Bitcoin plan, just in case we're being forced to all migrate to the digital yuan as the new currency for the world, because I think China has the wherewithal. Sorry, I have my windows shut because of cold, so it's a bit hot in my in my study here. So what I wanted to say about the tokens, I asked people to drop the tokens they wanted me to talk about. So if you're on Zoom, you can chat. You can drop the tokens in the chat. I have five that I wanted to recommend based on what I've seen. One of them is Loop Ring. Is it, no, not Loop Ring? Sorry, Loop, Luoop. I'm going to go into the where's the I'm going to go into the coin market cap analysis of each of them and explain why I think that's they're a good buy. Like I said, yes, last week, most cryptos are in their good buy region now, because um, we're about to enter a phase up for Bitcoin. So right now, let me quickly talk about Bitcoin before going to this stuff. Right now on the weekly chart, like I said 2 weeks ago, that this upsurge to 28,000 from 22,000 literally has put Bitcoin in a very close proximity with the supply zone. Supply zone mean area where people want to sell Bitcoin or want to buy more, which is in the 30K region. Now at 30K, many people suddenly believe that maybe Bitcoin is back. So there'll be a lot of attraction. And there are some other people that are waiting to unload the stock they bought at 20K at 30K. So whichever way, as I said 3 weeks ago, I think that we're still going to, I thought we were going to touch 30K over the last weekend actually, but the market has been quite quiet in the last 1 week relative to the week before. So if you're on Zoom, you see the purple line, that's the 30, 32K zone. It's still going to test that line. If it tests that line and the market does not hold true at that point in time, we're going to have a pullback, a definite pullback back to 23K. But like I said, my bet is on 33K, just to attempt to hit 33K before dropping back. But if there's not, okay, let me switch on the volume. If we don't have enough volume, if you don't have enough volume to drive the markets, then we might not. Yeah, the volume's been dropping, so we might not be able to get there. But if it gets there rather, and we don't have enough volume, then we're going to get a reversal back. But once we have that reversal, that's probably going to be the last pullback before the market starts to climb for the next bull run. Like I said, in January, we are about exactly, if I were less than 12 months away from the next halving based on the halving calculator. And the halving determines how the price of Bitcoin goes. So the the tradition is that the price continues to climb little by little or rapidly till you get to the halving. And then once you get to the halving, it crashes. It's almost like buy the rumor, sell the news. It crashes, then it climbs up. It starts to climb up again after like 2 or 3 months. So Loop Network is currently at about 20 cents. It's 20, yeah, 22 cents. Um, I think they have a very large community, and the overall supply is 200 million. What that means, and because the overall supply is 200 million and the circulating supply is not yet active on most exchanges, I think it's one of those that will easily do 10x in the next in the next run up. The other one is CAS. Actually, somebody told me about this about how many months ago. Well, I didn't have any liquidity at that time. The people, let me see, where is that stuff? I wanted to show you the price for CAS because it's quite interesting. Okay, somebody asked the question. I'm going to address that question. Just give me a second, Aditona. So CAS, this CAS was very uh, was a missed opportunity for me, but yeah, I didn't have liquidity at all, so I couldn't have gotten it. The person told me here about CAS. That was 0002. Yeah, pretty much July last year. That was 0002. So he literally did a 100x between when the person told me and now. But like I said, I wasn't even I wasn't I wasn't in space of mind to consider anything at that point in time. So I didn't get it. But I think it's gonna pull back. Once it pulls back, it's probably a good opportunity to go in for a 10x. Another one, it's an old one. I actually had some of this in 2020, but I think I sold it off. I sold it off at probably like 4x then, 2021, if I remember, to buy some other tokens. So Veracity, um, solid one, yeah. So peak price was 86, 8 cents, and it was coming from like, yeah, 0.002. So I think that's from current price, yeah, at the minimum from current prices, 10x, guaranteed 10x, because very huge following for Veracity and very huge community, which are very. Um, Casper, what was the price? I told you the price was 002 something then when I first heard about it. But I didn't really know what it was about, so I didn't take it serious. 0002. So it's at 0.032 now. I mentioned STX. How many weeks ago? I mentioned STX about 3 weeks ago. I actually think I did a whole, but I'll talk about it again just for people to understand. Let me finish with the one I'm talking about. DAG is Constellation. Again, these are relatively new. These are relatively new tokens. Of course, it's high risk. But again, if you consider the previous price, 2021 price, and now you see that they are 10x away from about 10x away from all-time high. So you can expect that at going back to all-time high, you will get some significant reward. The last one I wanted to talk about was RIO. So somebody asked about STX. I'll talk about STX shortly. I've talked about Arbitrum already. So this, yeah, it's 28 cents now. Um, it's um, it's one of those ones too that yeah I got to know about, but it didn't really do much back then. But there's a lot of noise about it now. I think if it goes well, I'm a bit reluctant about this one, but if it goes well, you might see like a 10x at the minimum, yeah, which is around here. If it goes back to all time high, that's more than 20x. Stacks as well, STX, if we like to call it that. STX, I used to have in fact, I think I still have STX wallet. I think it's called Hero Wallet now, if I remember. STX how do I put it? It's a blockchain based on the idea of how do I put it now? It's based on the idea of quickening the Bitcoin network. I hope they wrote it somewhere here. Yes, Stacks is a Bitcoin layer for smart contracts. Yeah, that was what I was looking for. So the idea was to try to use the Bitcoin technology to build smart contracts. Nobody has completely succeeded, if I may say, with doing that. So originally people have tried to use the Bitcoin blockchain itself to build smart contracts. It has failed. So what people are trying to do is to create a layer 2 solution that can subserve that function. So I've talked about layer 1 and layer 2. I don't think we have enough time to talk about it today. But most layer 2 solutions are trying to solve some problems that layer 1 can solve. So for instance, Polygon Matic or Arbitrum or Optimism are trying to solve a layer 2 solution for Ethereum because Ethereum is said to be very costly when there's too much traffic. So people like Polygon and Arbitrum are trying to take up some of those traffic and say we will do the submission on our own blockchain and post the batch, as if you will, into the Ethereum network. So the same thing is what Stacks is trying to do. So Stacks has always been a favorite for me since 2020 because the use case makes sense. I'm not sure how far the technology has gone in terms of deployment now, but the development was going on fine then. It's about yeah 0.9, and it's even pumped already. So earlier in the year it was about 0.31, which could have been almost 10x. So it's still about 5x or 3x from yeah. It's a very stable. Probably going to be around for a while because the use case is solid, no doubt about that. So I think Stacks makes sense. For CSPR, I think I used to have CSPR. Yeah, I know Casper. Yeah, Casper's been around for a while. I think I sold off on mine. Yeah, I think I sold off somewhere here when it was like 17. The problem with the problem with tokens like Casper is that because they've just gone through one bull run. You're not sure whether they'll come back. If they come back, of course, if they come back, it's all well and good, because what it means is you could go back to 5 or 10x as all time high. But if it doesn't come back, or if you, well, what if you buy it? Be sure that once all season is over, be ready to sell. So what I mean is this: usually when you have huge dips in the bull run, and the price of Bitcoin is going through the roof, one it gets to a point where it stays there. Once it stays there, all the other altcoins start to move. So what's happening at that point is that the the major whales that drive the market, they are selling their Bitcoin, but they're not selling it directly. So they're selling it to altcoins or smaller cap coins so as not to junk the market. So what then happens is altcoins start to rise at that point, and altcoins will rise for like 2 or 3 weeks or 4 weeks before it peters out. Once it starts to peter out, that's when you start to see the drop in the market capitalization across board. So if you have it, or if you intend to buy it, you need to keep that in mind. Wigo, I know Wigo because Wigo has a decentralized exchange, if I remember. Yeah, I know Wigo. So Wigo is a good one. Um, Again, one of those ones that came last year. If I came after the bull run, so this one has, as they say, the sky is the limit, because it really has not, gone through the bull market. So if the use case stays, so it's a decentralized exchange, the highest device taking and all that. If the use case stays strong, and the community is strong around it, then it will be a very huge return, because it means if you buy here and if it bounces to 0 to 40 cents, that's a 100x. Let's see. Nexa, I just heard about Nexa about a few days ago. I don't know much about it, but it has a lot of zeros in front of it, obviously. uh yeah, it's really pumped already. It's pumped like, wow. It's pumped from 4 zeros to 1, 2, 3. It's still 4 zeros, funny enough. Well, it seems to have pumped. Total supply is a lot. 2.2 trillion. Oh, unless they have a bond mechanism, this thing is going to struggle. I don't know much about them yet. I'm going to find out. But unless it has a bond mechanism, it's going to struggle. Um, FET. I know FET. Fetch AI. So Fetch AI was one of the first AI AI talking token. Let me use that word in the market. They were one of the first, you know, projects that were talking about AI and all that. They've not fared fantastically because people didn't really catch on. I had some at some point, but I sold it off after a while because it wasn't performing to expectation. So currently at 37, it's done 6 cents. Come see, come sir. I'm not sure. But of course, because it started with gaming, and now that there's a lot of talk about AI, by chance, I think it might gain some popularity. I've not heard about this one before. Okay, AGIX. Apparently, this one is interesting. Singularity Net. I've not seen this token before. Singularity Net AGIX token. It's a Cardano-based token, one of its kind, or first of its kind that I've seen. Uh, Interesting. I'll look into this one. I don't know about it, to be honest. But Cardano has not given people joy in recent times. So okay, fingers crossed. Just like one of my friends, I was trying to tell him that he should not get too optimistic with his XRP, and he was trying to convince me that just it's cut case. I was like, look, We've been with this SLP journey for a while. We know what it is, but it's okay. We'll see how it goes. I actually had this at some point as well in the last bull run. IXEC. I think it was yeah, they were trying to do what HNT is trying to do using network back then. So yeah, this are one of the yeah, they did fairly okay in the last bull run. I mean, it went from almost 1 to 10. In fact, because yeah, in 2020 it was around 29 cents. So good play to IXEC RLC. I had ILC at some point, but I think I sold off immediately. The stuff was a profit to buy other things. Bam Bam, the last three are confirmed. They are still on the centralized exchanges, so not much to say about them. But yes, they are confirmed. They have a lot of noise on social media. I think I know about audio. I don't know about 8pay. I don't know about autos. VChain is a real life, by the way. I don't know. I think I know about Singular. VChain is a real life crypto project. What do I mean? It was a project that was yeah, Singular. Okay. It was a project that was I don't know about this Singular. I'm just seeing it now. Anyways, VChain is as I said, it's a real life project because it was a conceptualized blockchain project. They developed the solution, and now the solution is in use. So what VChain is used for is to track logistic supply chain. It's almost like what you will use uh, barcode and batch numbers to do. That's what VChain is doing. So VChain is a proper utility blockchain. It's being used in Europe. I'm sure about that. As far back as 2020, they already had adoption with private companies using them. So yes, VChain is legit. This Singularity, I've not seen much of it. Glimmer, definitely. Glimmer, I know Glimmer. Those are players of the last bull run. So yes, so the last bull run, many of the players will be there. This looks like a new coin. September last year. Yeah. So for these ones, if they have like I said, I mean this is actually good. I don't know. I'll need to find out what the community looks like. It seems to be very silent. And circulating supply is just 100 million. Wow. I think this might be a good one. High risk, but potentially very high return because it's only ever dropped since inception, which is essentially to the bear market. So fair point, you could get definitely you could get a 10x from this. Definitely. Since inception, you should have that now. So prices to yes, all time. So it's 88% from all time high. Yeah. So I think it's a good buy. I don't know the coin, but just looking at how far it's dropped from all time high and where it came into the markets, definitely a good buy. Strax, yeah, Strax was supposed to do very well. I don't know what happened. I think the bear market happened to Strax. Was supposed to do very well. It's an old time coin. Has some OG communities. We've done so you can see that um, back in 2018, Strax was as high as $19, but it didn't get anywhere close. So my concern for Strax is that the OGs might be tired of the project. Sad but true. I mean, from 19, the peak it got to what, three in the last bull run. If you went to three in the last bull run, what it tells me is this: the OGs are selling off. If the OGs are selling off, then it means that probably 1.5 or 2 in the next bull run. So I'm not confident. I know Strax very well. I know the project. STRX, is it not STRX? Oh, okay, sorry, not Stratis. Okay, I was like, okay, I know Strax. I hope I know they're not the same thing. Strike Finance. Is it Strike? Oh no, STRX. I saw STRX now. Sorry. STRX Finance. DeFi project sitting on Tron. Yeah, it's relatively new. December last year. Relatively new. Well, the only thing I can say has going for it is one is on Tron blockchain. Those guys they have very deep connections to China, so they know how to pump the market. So you can benefit from that pump when the bull runs in full swing. Definitely. Honestly, most tokens right now, I wish I had like $1 million right now. I'll just spread it across all tokens because you are guaranteed that in the next 18, 24 months, you will have like a 1000% gain conservatively for most of them. That's just it. That's just the reality, except for the very old ones that you know that okay, they've not really done well in the last bull run. Anything that didn't do well in the last bull run, like Strax, I just showed you, it's a no for me. I think we've overshot our time for today. If we don't have any questions other than this, I think it would be a good time to call it a day. If there are any questions on Zoom, please unmute your mic. Let's take it before I go. Otherwise, I'm happy to say good night. Hi, Paul. Please go
Hello,
ahead.
Doc. Yeah, what I asked about, the token I asked about is Strike X.
Yeah.
Strike X, not STRX Finance. So I don't know if you can check that one for me again.
Yeah, that's the one. Can you see my screen?
That's Strike X. Oh, what you just highlighted on is a different token.
Oh, okay.
Strike X.
Okay, I actually saw the Strike X before the yeah.
That's it. The one on top.
Yeah, I saw the Strike X before the Strike Finance, but because the way you wrote it was STRX, I was like, okay, maybe it was that one. I'm just hearing I'm just hearing about this one. When was this? 2020. Interesting. 2020. 21. Okay. So this came through. Okay. It came up through the bull run. What's the total supply? 1 billion. Regulated supply is about 20%. This was in November, right? Okay, yeah, this was in November. So he peaked in November. Okay, this has a chance of going back to all-time high. If it goes back to all-time high, it's close to 10x. It's on BNB, so I'm not sure. Yeah, Strike X, Strike B5. Frankly, no, I don't think
It's all-time high. When I checked was some $6,604.
where. Where did you see that?
Kindly scroll down. Scroll down to
Historical
the
price.
stats area.
All-time high.
Yeah, all-time high.
That was probably at the launch. That's not a reliable price.
Okay.
How do I explain this now? You know that if you have a launch of a token that was not originally what's that word, that wasn't sold through ICO or wasn't sold through LDO, and there had been a lot of noise about that strike about that token, and then it gets launched. When it gets launched, what it means is that there is very limited supply on the day it gets launched, but as more people acquire it, and as the owners of the project themselves divest the token, it starts to go down. So 18th of October last year was this is it was saying 18th of October. It can't be 18th of October last year now, because that's not representative of the price that we have here. Yeah, I don't know where that data is coming from. No, that's not representative of the data. This is last year. This is October last year. The price of October last year is higher than current price. So I won't take that. I will take that with a pinch of salt, frankly. If I can't see it on the ground, then I don't believe what this is saying. What's the frame of reference for the price for the high and the low? Because if that was the highest, you should see it there. It says all-time low was 0000014, and all-time high was 6,000. Now this is all that's showing me. All-time high here was 11.4 cents, pretty much, yeah, or even, yeah, barely. Okay, let's say 20 cents. That was the all-time high. All-time low was here. They have in red, and that was even in 2021. So it's about 10x from all-time low, based on what we have on the CoinMarketCap, except maybe it's on Dex Tools or something, where they've kept the record when it was still on chain. But apart from that, yeah, probably that was the reference data that they were using. But yeah, I'll keep an eye and see and watch out for it. All right, have a lovely weekend, everyone. Thanks for watching, and see you next week. Bye.
Hello. Oh,
Oh, Bam Bam, you have a question.
yes. Sorry, you said you wanted to do some research about the AI tokens.
On AI tokens, I couldn't. Sorry, I had to.
I know you're busy.
I had to share this
Yeah.
once.
Okay.
But I still
Is
have.
it possible to bring the other coins next week?
Yes, sure.
Okay, can we send them to you for you to review?
Yeah.
During the week.
Yeah, you can.
Okay, because maybe if you have time to review them during the week, you won't bother. Maybe just let us know the ones that make sense instead of, because the time is short, so I don't think we'll probably be able to review everything, because other people too will have questions. Yeah. So maybe I'll be able to send some to you.
Yeah, you can send some of them. Yeah.
So just let us know the ones that you think make sense.
No problem.
So that we can know how to share 1 million.
To share the allocation.
Cross boards. Yes. Okay, thank you. Have a nice weekend.
Cheers, bye.
Bye-bye.